Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Modern Super League round number 4. I'm here with the champion of the pod, Jim Davis. Jim, congratulations.
Yeah, that game 3, I'm not gonna lie, I thought I was pretty dead. I'm like, all right, I'm only into 5, and then the hand was just, the shove with Shieldred and say a prayer, and thankfully my
Oh,
prayers were
Shieldred
answered.
ruined me. I was like,
I
I
know.
guess I'm discarding into the Shieldred. Take 4, draw a
Yeah.
step, take 2 more. Ooh, yeah, it was brutal, but good games, good games. They were really fun,
Love
and
the good
I
games.
I figured I was gonna be a little bit favored in that matchup, but I had 2 Shieldreds of my own to draw to that I was, like, praying and hoping, and I was like, "Come on, Shieldred, Shieldred." Nope,
For
no
sure, yeah.
Shieldred.
Yeah, definitely.
But
And then also once I got going there on that last turn, you have the Hearse to block, the kind of so you kinda set up
yeah.
decently, and then I just drew 2 wolves also. So
Yeah, I
you
was
get
like you, drew 1 wolf, and I was like, "Well, I can't eat that because if I eat it, then I'm gonna die to the hearse, and, it's pretty doomed for me." I was like, "Alright, 2nd wolf, I'm done." But you know
yes.
who's not done, and who is just about to get started is Javier versus Mason. It's a hammer versus creativity matchup. Jim, who do you think is favored here?
I'm not sure. They're both pretty interesting because both decks have this sort of combo finish, but can play a fair game also. I think there's definitely some pressure on the hammer deck to kind of get in as far as end game wise. A couple of Archons will probably take down the game. But Hammer has the ability to do that. As you saw in the first match, Hammer can grind. It can lean on
Mhm.
sagas, kind of make some tokens, play a longer game, but it can also just kill you on turn 2 or whatever too. So
Absolutely.
there is interaction in Mason's deck. We have 4 lightning bolts, reprieve, some spell
Yep,
pierces
I'm
as
binding.
well, 4 bindings. So the tools are there. This is not your typical combo versus infecty beatdown matchup. Because both players have interactive tools, but should be fun.
Yeah, I know for sure Mason wasn't expecting Hammer. When I asked him, "What do you think Javier is gonna be on?" He was like, "Tron." He's gonna be on Tron or maybe like Jun Saga. I don't think anybody put Javier on Hammer for this event, so I don't think that Mason's gonna have a ton of sideboard hate for Hammer, but I think he has like a couple of pieces still here and there. But we're about to see how that match is gonna go very shortly, and we're gonna get on down to it. Alrighty, opening hand for both players. We got Javier with an opening hand of a couple of Stoneforge Mystics, a Pure Steel Paladin, Cigar Zeta, and a Thoughtseize. No Black Source on the side of Javier, but still a pretty solid hand with the Stoneforge Mystics and the Cigar Zeta. And over on the side of Mason Clark, we got a hand of Renin 6 and a bunch of mediocre cards, and then the namesake Creativity, of course. But it looks like Renin 6 is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting to catch him up on land drops here.
Yeah, definitely the tools are there for Mason, but needs to do a little bit. We see pretty decent draw from Javier, right? We have Cigar Zade, 2 Stone Forges. So this is a hand that can produce some pretty fast hammers, but again, no block, like you said, only 2 lands. So both players' hands are not made yet.
Yeah, they're getting there though. As we pick up a Fable of the Mirror Breaker on the side of Mason, so Renaissance is going to come down, pick up that land drop, and a little Fable on 3 should be pretty nice. Although Javier has the potential to kill incredibly quickly out of the gates with the Cigar Zade, plus the Stoneforge Mystic tutoring up a couple of hammers. We'll see if Mason's got the tools to fend off the relentless assault of monks coming his way.
Yeah, I love the so far in the games we watched Javier. Javier has not played Ornithopter basically ever. Really holding it and kind of keeping the information that the Thopter is there until the last possible turn where it would attack. And I believe this is the turn it's going to be cast because it could attack with a hammer next turn. But good to see that. Not really. There's no need to kind of just play it out there and show Mason what's going on. So now we're set up hammer, Thopter, a bit storm forward to the creature, and now it's pretty scary for Mason to tap out for Fable because things could go very very wrong.
Oh yeah, Mason could just die here if Javier rips. I guess not. He's still 1 land away to from going Stoneforge Mystic, grab second hammer, hammer, hammer. But he is gonna take a nice hit for 10 if he does tap out for this Fable, I imagine.
Yeah, and then the binding is there also, but not a lot of other interaction really for Mason. We have second copy of Ren, the Fable, of course, Archon in hand. Kind of cute that the Persist was naturally drawn, so we could see the Archon discarded to the Fable and then persisted, which is kind of a surprising shot for Javier because there only is 1 persist in the deck. It's not a thing you really expect. We could see Fable discard the Archon, next turn persist and binding. But we'll see how Mason wants to play it out.
Note it is an open deck list tournament, so I imagine the one of persist is probably on Javier's mind, at least in some capacity. That's the nice thing about having these open deck list tournaments is playing one ofs can really mind game the opponent.
Yeah, we got a really conservative play here from Mason. So kind of casting the binding for 2, so not getting like full value on the cost reduction on binding, and then also not playing anything else. Kind of wasting a mana here. And now things are even a little harder to set up next turn as far as Fable goes, but does have access to a fetch land and creativity for an Archon.
Do you think we're gonna see Pure Steel Paladin plus Hammer draw a card, or do you think Javier is gonna take a more conservative line this turn?
Um, it's tough. It's really it's got to stink for Javier with those 2 Thoughtseizes in hand, because we'd love to take a look right now and see what's going on. Yeah, I mean, probably just pure still draw, I would think, but
Maybe it's
and
second Stoneforge. We see Javier dancing with a Stoneforge Mystic. Like, what do I do? What do I do? In, out of the red zone, and in at the Ren and 6, down to 4. And then we see that, like, the splash in these hammer decks is usually considered free, but not having any sort of silent clearing or black mana in general is pretty rough for Javier right now. But we do see a Stoneforge Mystic into the hammer, play the hammer, and then we're setting up for the Pierce to Paladin the next turn.
yeah, one important thing when you're playing against creativity, which I was trying to do in my match prior, was that you need to kind of like imagine what things are going to look like in the post Archon world. So okay, if an Archon comes down, like how is my board going to handle that? How's my hand going to handle that? And what's the next turn going to look like? So we could see an Archon here, but Javier trying to maybe find the way to kind of keep some hammers in play and kind of get things going if things go wrong with the Archon.
Yeah, it looks like a creativity X1 incoming. Or we're gonna take a different line here. I think that's like realistically the only line that's gonna be good for Mason. At least give him a
Yeah,
shot at winning this game through the Pure Steel Paladin. And we see it, and we see a bidding of the Thoughtseize. Useless piece of cardboard into the graveyard.
yeah,
I'll
very
take up on his
fast
Iron 6.
sacrifice and discard there. I think Javier was 100% ready. That was all mapped out what he wanted to do, and now we see the Paladin come down, hammers come down, and things are getting big.
Now, if Javier equips 2 hammers onto the same thing, Mason's gonna have to chump block, but it looks like Javier is going 1 and 1 on the hammers. Still has to chump block, so my bad. And he gets in for 10. I misrepresented the board state.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, Archon's obviously really, really good. Like it's a very, very powerful effect. But in some of these modern decks are able to just kind of power through it. So like Javier just took that Archon on the chin and just said, all right, here's 20 power.
Yep.
Block or die.
And we're gonna see the persist here, bringing back this Archon, but no way of giving it haste. There's no bitter reunion in Mason Clark's list, so no way of clearing out multiple creatures here unless he top decks maybe a leyline binding or something of the like.
Yeah, it feels like mostly just binding. Bolt not good enough here, obviously. I guess a bolt on the paladin first would help a little bit, but still in chump block mode there.
Just a reprieve is the pickup, and it's not gonna be very helpful. I don't think Javier really needs to cast another spell this game to close it out with the 2 hammers on the requisite creatures. Maybe this persist can draw into a binding and actually give him a shot at this game, but it's looking pretty grim for Mason.
I mean, there's a few looks. There's also the blockers from the Dwarven Mines also. So like there could be a little bit of biding time, but it's funny because Javier just played the Saga last turn as an afterthought. But that's gonna play over the next 2 turns. That's a pretty important factor as far as making tokens, buying another hammer. So we got a little more to go here for sure.
Ren and 6 ping. Ren and 6 ping. Get out of here, Pure Steel Paladin. Persist back the Archon. Make him sacrifice probably the Ornithopter. And then discard this other dead Thoughtseize in hand. Never being cast this game. And another creativity ripped off the top for Mason. Maybe Mason might be able to come back into this.
Yeah, I mean, at exactly 11, which is the current size of the Stoneforge Mystic, but of course a blocker available off the Dwarven Mine. I think that Javier might need a little help here, and he finds it.
Yeah, that's gonna get a Shadow Spear. Maybe? Yeah,
Yeah, a
probably a
little
Shadow
short though.
Spear,
One
right?
mana short, unfortunately, of actually equipping it because the Pure Paladin is now dead. So
Yeah, that's right.
might have stemmed the tide here a little bit with the extra creativity looming in hand.
Yeah, I think this extra creativity is probably going to close out the game for Mason. And an unexpected turn of events here.
Yeah, kind of a cute spot where like the dwarf can block and then the Archon can attack and then like get another dwarf and then just creativity to the Archon and the dwarf, and that's a lot of Archon triggers to get through. Might even be lethal, honestly. So
Yeah, that's 5, 8 damage, 11. Yeah, creativity X2 is just, oh wow, he's just blocking with the Archon, not fetching up the Dwarven Mine. A little surprised to see that.
yeah, I would think that too. I think you'd want to just you could jump out with the dwarf, then you get your Archon attack in as well as multiple triggers. But let's see what Mason's plan is here.
We're going to attribute that to the sickness that Mason's currently experiencing. He hasn't been feeling too great, so maybe a little bit of brain fog going on.
Hmm. I always like to assume master plan. You know,
That's fair. But I got to take my shots at Mason where I
oh yeah,
can.
that's also fair. All right,
Creativity
so
X2.
yeah, we're gonna see some Archons popping out here, and there's still gonna be a large creature in play. With the Urza Saga able to make a token, 2 edicts will kill the Giver of Runes and the Saga token. There's still this big Stoneforge hanging out, but with 2 Archons in play, it'll be a little hard to cross the finish line.
I don't think Mason was out of Dwarven Mines at the time, right? Because he still had 1 left in the deck with 3 in play.
Yeah, I don't think so. So,
And maybe just an oversight on his part.
all right.
Here comes
So,
the creativity.
also possibility of drawing a Leyline Binding here with the 1 white up.
Doesn't have the island to make it cost just
Oh,
1, so
good catch.
not quite able to cast it yet, but it would be a good draw for the future turn.
Of course, the fun process of actually casting a spell on Magic Online takes a second, takes a little bit of finagling. Gotta click a land here, click a land there, click a mana source. And there they are.
Got it
Double
done.
Archon.
Powerful 8-drop coming down. ETB, trigger. So the only thing that's going to remain is the Stoneforge on the side of Javier. Loses the entire hand, loses most of the battlefield. Mason sees 2 cards and 6 life. Mason's miles ahead now.
Yeah, it's basically this turn or bust for Javier.
We
Really
can
enjoying
get
the
a
crispness that Javier plays with here. I feel like everything time something has happened, Javier just instantly responds and has the right thing all planned out. No real thinking on any part. Javier's he's pretty good.
He's alright. He's
Yeah.
top 8 of the Pro Tour too, I've heard.
Yeah, 1 or 2, just here or there.
So we
The
can get a
fervent
Shadow
champion.
Spear off of the Urza Saga. Do you think the Shadow Spear is going to do anything to help Javier crawl back into this game? Maybe that with a combination of a Pure Steel Paladin off the top is good enough to win him the game?
I mean, they get 2 mana. Actually, yeah, that would work, right? So you float a mana with the Urza Saga and don't make a
Forge Anew.
token. Drop. Oh, that's what's
That
Fortune
works
do?
too. So Forge Anew equips the hammer for free and can also get an equipment back from the graveyard. There's currently no equipments in the graveyard, but he can float a man off the Urza Saga, get a Shadow Spear, equip only one of the 2 actually, because he needs 3 mana for the Forge Anew and 2 mana to equip the Shadow Spear. So it almost does it, but not quite. I think we're 1 mana shy here.
Yeah, Fortune only able to pay 0 for the first equip cost, not any
Yeah,
equip
just the
costs. So
first.
I will confess that I looked that one up. I wasn't exactly sure how that card worked. I knew it was in the ballpark, but I was pretty sure it was just 1.
What's the mana? Plays the Forge Anew, but it's not quite going to be good enough. So close.
Yeah. Yeah. Once those Archons get to attack, well, one will have to block. Or no, not even. It's still now we're up to 16 because the Archon. Archon does so much. Like eating boards. The life gain's huge. Really
He's
covers
going to have to
covers most
block
angle.
here. If Mason doesn't block, he dies. Because Forge Anew allows you to equip something at instant speed for the first time. So he can equip the hammer at instant speed.
Yeah, so we can see 12 life gained here and 6 damage dealt, but I don't think it's going to matter against the looming Archon attack, which will just be lethal. I'm sorry, not be lethal with the life gain.
Yeah, Shadow Spear is going to get equipped here at instant speed for free. Gain him a little bit of life, but it's not I mean, not having a board state on the side of Javier after this is probably going to spell defeat.
Yeah, life total's not exactly indicative of the current advantage bar.
Not at all, but the hand size is, as the leyline binding is peeled off the top, and that's definitely going to seal the deal here for Mason. Game 1 should be going to him very shortly.
Yeah, some tense moments there for sure. But the first Archon was not enough, but the next two, they were able to pull it down.
Yeah, it was a very swingy game, a lot swingier than I thought it was going to be, because it seemed like at a certain point this game, Javier had it locked up. At a certain point, Mason had it locked up, and now we're just still going back and forth. But I think this is the final swing of the game, as Javier is probably just going to take a draw step and pack it up here.
Well, now we got our black source at least, right?
Yeah, and now we get the Thoughtseize as the next draw as well. Perfect. Just like we drew it up.
Yep.
All right, sideboarding on the side of Mason. He's got a couple of Terra Sunders. Oh, sorry, just the one Terra Sunder and the Besieger to bring in. And it looks like maybe the Alpine Moons if he wants to name Urza Saga. And he's thinking about it. Spell
Interesting because
Pierce.
like if you're playing a more controlling or slower deck, the Alpine Moons are excellent at turning off Urza Saga, which is usually the best way for a hammer deck to beat a more removal heavy deck. But Mason has this again this kind of combo finish where it goes from being kill your thing, kill your thing, kill your thing to creating an insurmountable advantage pretty quickly. So will Alpine Moon, does Urza Saga matter much? We're going to see what Mason thinks about that, and if the Alpine Moons come in or not.
It looks like they are because he's taking out the Teferis, which he doesn't feel like are great in this matchup. And they're not amazing, especially against the Bowmaster build. Teferi looks kind of embarrassing if it has to -3 against a Bowmaster and they get pinged and die. So I agree with cutting the Teferis. A couple of Spell Pierces can probably stay in. They're not completely terrible in this matchup, although Stoneforge Mystic has a lot to say about how good Spell Pierce is, as she can quote-unquote vile equipment into play, as I like to call it, because it's very uncounterable.
All out. Love me an Aether Vial. Interesting
A
here.
Goblin
Javier
staple.
Javier has access to 4 copies of Thoughtseize total, and actually boarded one of them out, which is interesting. We saw that first it was 2 and 2, 2 out, and then 2 in, and then at the end there was 3 main and one in the board post sideboarding, which is pretty interesting. You'd think it would be good against this sort of matchup, but perhaps concerned with Veil of Summer or Spell Pierce and so on and so forth, and wants to go for a faster kill.
Maybe he just had like PTSD from not drawing a black source the first game, and he was like, "What if I just like cut one of these?" You ever have that like feel bad? I'm gonna sideboard out a card moment just because it didn't look good game 1.
Oh yeah, that's the mirror image of like I flooded, so I'm boarding out of land. So
Yeah,
I didn't draw
exactly.
black. I'm boarding out Thoughtseize.
I don't think that's the case here. I imagine he has a rhyme or a reason to board out the Thoughtseize. And speaking of Thoughtseize, turn 1 Thoughtseize is probably going to snag this Ren and 6 since Mason's a little bit light on lands here.
There you go. That's why Javier's so good. You board out 3 Thoughtseize. You're going to have one turn 1 anyway. So
Only need one. You
yeah,
just
right.
gotta open the one in the hand. No problem. Is there an argument to Lightning Bolt or Leyline Binding or creativity here? Do you think it's a snap take Ren and 6? It is a snap take Ren and 6.
I think it's got to be the Ren. Because the thing is, in a lot of decks, Ren is only drawing lands. In the creativity deck, the Ren is drawing combo pieces too. Because every fetch land past the 4th land is another dwarf for your creativities also. So I think taking the Ren here, Ren's really, really important here.
Looks like Orcish Bowmasters was the pickup.
Yeah, not exactly a made hand for Javier here. We have a hammer and there's a Stoneforge Mystic also, but no way to equip yet. No real kind of consistent threat like an Urza Saga or something like that, or a Pierce Pod and draw some cards. So definitely some work to do on Javier's side. And of course, Javier also knows about the Lightning Bolt and the Leyline Binding.
Stoneforge Mystic going to pick up. What do you think it's going to pick up here? Cauldra?
It'd be really
That's
hard to
still an
get
option.
Calder into 2 removal spells, so might just get another hammer in hopes of drawing a Pure Steel Paladin or a Sigarda's Aid.
Yeah. Cauldра's probably not an option here at all. It's got to be the hammer, yeah. I think the Cauldра's still in the deck post board, though. I don't recall seeing him boarded out.
Yeah, it's weird because the creativity deck it's kind of like the old Scapeshift decks where it's this combo deck that just has a bunch of interaction in it, where these bolts and these removal spells and so on and so forth. So you kind of have to you can't just try and goldfish them and try and race the combo because they have interaction, but you also can't slow play on the interaction like you would against a control deck because they're just gonna combo kill you also. So it can be a very challenging, line to walk. How far into I want to go, and then how long can I afford to wait?
Yeah, it's just when they accidentally go oops kill you on 4, it makes it pretty difficult to try to slow play all this interaction and wait it out and take your time because creativity can turn the corner incredibly quickly. At least Scape Shift had to wait until turn 7. This deck doesn't have to wait that long. Just turn
Yep.
4, fire it off sometimes. You just get there.
Yeah, and Mason's hand has definitely improved a lot. Previously it was only 2 lands. Now I picked up a few more lands, and I got a Fable now here also. A couple removal spells still, has the creativity. Notably, no fetch land. We just have 2 dual lands here, so no way to find a token aside from actually casting Fable here.
Yeah, it looks like just leaving up the Lightning Bolt plus the Leyline Binding. Binding is going to cost 2 since we have no black source on the side of Mason Clark. Maybe Bowmaster Flash in? No Bowmaster from Javier.
Interesting.
Opting to play incredibly patiently here.
This is what I was
Knows about
saying.
the
It's
Bolt.
it's hard to walk that line. It's you want to hold back the one Spellmaster because removal spells, but you can't wait too long. Very interesting spot though. I mean, holding back here is it's scary. Mason's getting into the turn 4, turn 5 range where a fetch land. Javier knows about the creativity, so a fetch land could be holding the Bowmaster as insurance against a dwarf token. Kind of try and force Mason to use the Fable, make a 2/2, or make a treasure token, and looks like that's what's happening.
Just another Stoneforge Mystic on the side of Javier. Definitely not grabbing that Cauldron in the face of the Leyline Binding, I imagine. Probably just a Shadow Spear, setting up for future Pure Steel Paladins and Sigarda's Aids off the top. Oh, we are going to grab the Cauldron. I was wrong.
Interesting. Now with 2 Stoneforge Mystics, you're not as you're not risking as much of one of them dying and not be able to put it in. And then I guess maybe Javier wants to force his bind up. There you go, buys a binding right there. So Gitter's binding the Stoneforge, not even bother trying to hit the Cauldron Germ.
Makes sense. You gotta just hit the Cauldron itself also. You don't even need to hit the Germ.
That's true.
Fable. Coming on down. And probably just a tap land for Mason. And I expect Javier to flash in this Bowmasters that Ents did not flash in the Bowmasters.
Still holding it. I mean, I like the plan. Javier is just saying, you got to have something besides a 1/1 to do this. Obviously there's a 2/2 in play. I'm about to make some treasures also, but it's not doing much in play anyway against 2/2 regardless. So
I think the merit of flashing the Bowmasters at end step is top decking a Sigarda's Aid. If you top deck Sigarda's Aid, you can attack with both 1/1s and then 20 them. 20
that's fair.
Mason with the unblocked one. I think that's the best merit of flashing the Bowmaster there, but Javier opted to take the more reserve line and just say, go ahead, Mason. It's your turn.
All right. Well, this looks like it might be the big turn. Of course, Javier is aware of the creativity in Mason's hand. There's now a treasure and the shaman token. Perhaps not for long.
Yep, little 1 damage ping plus a 1/1 block. Cleans up the Goblin Shaman. Go back to your 1,000-year door or whatever you came from, Kiki. Get out of here.
All right.
Creativity
So
X1.
is 1 Archon enough is the question. And it looks like Mason is saying the answer is yes.
Contemplating. Yep. An Archon coming down. Expect the Cauldron to go away, and the Ornithopter, yep, makes sense. Bowmaster trigger, make another 1/1. Sigarda's Aid is still a lethal top deck here. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
not with the Dwarven Mine.
Yes.
It's not
Another
very helpful.
Bowmaster. All right. So Javier says, all right, time to empty his hand. Don't want to lose any cards to the Archon. This does hurt top deck potential, though, of course, because now a Sigarda's 8 off the top will not be as impressive.
Yeah, Pure Steel Paladin not quite going to do it either since we only have 2 artifacts in play and not the requisite 3 to turn on Metalcraft. It's looking more and more grim as every turn passes for Javier here.
We've also got that reflection sub game going now. Now that it is flipped, there's a lot of pressure there as well. Copying Archon, very, very powerful, as well as basically anything else.
On the plus side, Javier does get to sacrifice this Orc token and then get 2 Bowmaster triggers and ping Mason and ping the reflection here. Makes another 2/2 replacement, but Javier needs a prayer off the top. What do you think his best draw is here?
Does Forge Anew work?
Forge Anew would have been pretty close. Pure Steel Paladin, like I mentioned, is not going to do it because there's
Yep.
no Metalcraft.